Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 308. Hope you guys have had a good weekend. Welcome back. We're going to pick up where we left off in the last podcast. And if you guys follow my podcast, you've been watching, or if this is the first time you've ever watched my podcast, I do suggest going back and at least watching the podcast before this, because I'm going to pick right back up where I left off in the last podcast. And we were talking about the media. And at the beginning of last podcast, I started out with a premise, and I'm going to restate that premise as we get into today's podcast and elaborate on it. But the premise is that the mainstream media, network media, the media that is owned by 5 or 6 corporations that own most of the media that we consume, whether it be print, whether it be television, whether it be sitcoms, sports programming, films, the people that bring you the news, they also own all of that. And I was making the case, and the premise is that that media, the mainstream legacy media, has an agenda. And that agenda is the same agenda as the Democratic Party, and there's no light between them. That if the Democratic Party is for abortion, mainstream media supports abortion and projects the narrative that they want throughout all of their media outlets. Like I was just saying, television programming, they write it into the scripts. In the movies, it's all promotes abortion because that's the agenda of the Democrat Party. So if the Democratic Party supports climate change, then all the media supports climate change and man-made climate change. And if mainstream media is talking about the Maryland father from El Salvador, and that's the Democratic Party's agenda. That's what they're talking about. There's no daylight between the agenda of the mainstream media and the Democratic Party. That's the premise. So we started talking about that in the last podcast. We're going to get right back into that today. And in the last podcast, I played this clip of these 3 black Trump voters. And if you watch the entire interview, one of them says they voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and then voted for Trump in 2024. One of them says that she voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and then voted for Trump in 2020. So these people were Democrat voters who left the Democratic Party, like many of us have, to not necessarily support Trump, but support the MAGA movement, the movement that Trump is leading. And Van Jones, this clip has gone viral. Van Jones asked each of them if they regret voting for Trump, because that's the narrative that the Democrats and the media have been telling us for weeks now, is that all these people regret their vote and that everybody's, unhappy with Trump. And Van Jones asked these 3 black voters who used to be Democrats, if you had to do it over again, would you still vote for Trump? And they all say that they would. And today I want to start with this clip. This is a clip of Roland Martin. If you don't know who Roland Martin is, he is a black activist who portrays himself as a journalist. He works for CNN. He works for News One. He's the guy, if you don't remember, you'll see him here in a moment, but he gave questions to Hillary Clinton before the debate in 2016. So he's a black activist. And now he's on YouTube. He runs this network on YouTube. He even got a interview with Kamala Harris before the election last year. But I want you to listen to how Roland Martin talks about these 3 black voters who said they don't regret their vote and they used to be Democrats and they vote for Republicans now. I want you to listen to how this guy talks about these people.
You had to do it all over again. Would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
John, those are 3 of the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life. Okay.
Three of the dumbest people that I've ever seen in my life is the way he describes these people.
John, those are three of the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so let me just unpack what I heard. Now, I know Morgan's like, oh, no, you can't go there. Actually, I can go there because those are three idiots. First and foremost.
Well, I want to hear the rationale.
No, here's why. First of all, when the woman in red, yeah, I was listening to Candace Owens. We know she lies. We know she just lies. Well, I was listening to Candace Owens and I read her book. Okay, you're listening to a grifter. Okay, so she's not giving you factual information. She's a grifter. Then let's go to this idiot dude who needs a haircut. Okay, so he's sitting here.
He's just demeaning him. He just keeps, demeaning him, calling him stupid. The guy needs a haircut. I mean, he's going to tell you here in a moment that he's not even trying to reach those, but this is ridiculous.
Yeah, TikTok is the holy grail. I'm not getting my information from news channels. I'm getting it from TikTok.
So he understands that this, I mean, if you go back and watch the interview with Van Jones, these guys are saying that the one woman says that she gets her news from TikTok, or the guy says he gets his news from TikTok. I don't want to move the clip, but he says he gets his news from TikTok. The other girl says that she read Candace Owens' book. And so Roland Martin, who comes from mainstream media, Roland Martin is what we call black boule. He went to Texas A&M. He pledged a black fraternity. These are black elites that what's his name? Du Bois called the talented 10. That's the way they see themselves. It's the talented 10. We call them the black boule. And Roland Martin is criticizing these black voters, calling them idiots, saying that this guy needs to get his hair cut and all this stuff, just really being derogatory. But he understands what it's about because he understands that these guys, it's where they got their information from. That one woman says that she started reading Candace Owens' book and that kind of opened her eyes. And the other guy says that TikTok videos opened his eyes. Doesn't matter where they're getting information from. They're not getting information from the mainstream media. That's the important part.
Yeah, TikTok is the holy grail. I'm not getting my information from news channels. I'm getting it from TikTok. Here's what we know based upon polling. People who got information from news sources voted more so for Harris because they got factual information. Folk who got their information from non-news sources, they voted for Trump.
And Trump won. And Trump won, fool. Listen to what this guy's saying. Yes, fool. I said that before the election. I said it over and over again, that the election was going to be about the people that trusted the mainstream media and people who don't trust the mainstream media. And according to Gallup, in this poll that they did just last year, that only 31% of the country trusts the media. 31% of the country has a fair amount of trust for the media. That's why she lost, you idiot. Because nobody's getting their news from the mainstream media. Nobody trusts them anymore. Only 3 in 10 Americans trust the mainstream media. And that is exactly why she lost. You just stated the reason why she lost. And I said it over and over again before the election, that the election was going to be about the people that trusted the mainstream media and the people that didn't trust them. And yes, you're absolutely right, Roland. The people that got their information from the mainstream media voted for Kamala Harris. And the people that didn't get their information from the mainstream media voted for Trump, and Trump won. He not only won the popular vote, he won all 7 swing states. You idiot. You're calling those people idiots. You're the idiot.
I'm not getting my information from news channels. I'm getting it from TikTok. Here's what we know based upon polling. People who got information from news sources voted more so for Harris because they got
and that's why she lost. and that's why she
folks who
lost. And
got
no,
their information
and they
from
didn't get factual information. I'm gonna show you the kind of information they got here in just a moment. It's not factual information, and people know that it's not factual information, and that's why they fled mainstream media, because they know that it's garbage. It's not factual information. There would be no market for TikTok, for people getting their information on TikTok if people trusted the mainstream media. The reason why there is an opening for people to believe what's going on TikTok is because only 31% of the nation believes that the media, the mainstream media, these guys, Walt Disney Company, Netflix, NBC Universal, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Fox Corporation, Sony Entertainment, only 31% of the nation trust those news sources and outlets from those corporations. And that's the problem. That's the problem. That's why she lost. And people are turning off the media in mass because they understand what's going on, that the media has an agenda. And it's not an accident that the approval rating of the Democratic Party and the trust in the media is charting about the same. The approval rating for the Democratic Party right now is around 33%, and 31% of the nation trust the media. It's not an accident that they chart together, because they have the same agenda, and everybody understands that. So Roland Martin demeans these guys and calls them idiots and all this stuff. And then I want you to listen to a little bit of what he says here. Take a listen.
So people like that, I mean, to be perfectly honest, there are some black people who I think are so delusional and so out to lunch, you're not going to reach them. I don't believe that that's who you should be going after.
So he's saying that as Democrat voters, we shouldn't be going after the people like Van Jones was talking to, people that were voting Democrat just 4 years ago, just 8 years ago, that we shouldn't be going after those people. Because they're just idiots, is what Roland Martin says. We shouldn't be going after those idiots that voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. We shouldn't be going after those idiots. Listen to what this woman says.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Mm-hmm. Now, in the future, I am not a diehard Democrat or a diehard Republican.
In the future, I'm not a diehard Democrat or a diehard Republican. I can be persuaded. And listen to what she says.
If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned for me, then I would vote Democrat.
She says she can be persuaded. She says she can be persuaded if there was a Democrat. And then Roland Martin's here saying that we shouldn't even worry about these idiots, that these people are idiots, that we shouldn't even worry about them. You know, we can't convince them. She's telling you in the interview that I can be persuaded if you put up a good candidate that aligns with my morals, with the things that I support, the things that I believe in. He says, no, we shouldn't even talk to her.
To be perfectly honest, there are some black people who I think are so delusional.
Yeah, they're delusional.
Out to lunch, you're not going to reach them. I don't believe that that's who you should be going after. Not those three. You're not going after them. Okay? Because if you're so willing to believe lies.
So willing to believe lies.
Then you promote the
lie. He's promoting and advocating for the mainstream media. If you're so willing to believe lies, put a pin in that.
You're not going after them. Okay? Because if you're so willing to believe lies.
Okay.
And then you promote the lie that you heard, and it's not even remotely factual, then how in the hell do you counter that level of stupidity?
They're stupid.
So I can comment on this.
Watch what this guy says. Watch what this guy says. So Roland's calling them stupid, and this guy, watch what this guy says. That these people are stupid. That's what they're saying. That these three people, because they said that they would vote for Trump again, one of them says that I could be persuaded to vote for a Democrat. All of them voted for Democrats in the past, but now vote for Trump. They're stupid. is what they call them. Continue to call them stupid. Listen to this guy.
You know, from working on campaigns, we have a universe of voters we call persuadables. And
they're not persuadable. This woman that said that in the future, if you can find a Democrat that aligns with her vision for America, that she's persuadable, but they're not persuadable, is what she says.
Comment stated that there are some things that Democrats, liberals need to improve on. And Roland, you touched on it. Informed people voted for Kamala Harris.
Back to the mainstream media. When he says informed people, he's talking about people informed by the mainstream media voted for Kamala Harris. Yes, it wasn't enough. That's why she lost. That's why she lost every swing state. That's why she lost the popular vote, because people that were informed by the mainstream media voted for Kamala Harris, and the people that are not informed, misinformed by that junk voted for Donald Trump. You're absolutely right.
And a previous comment stated that there are some things that Democrats, liberals need to improve on. And Roland, you touched on it. Informed people voted for Kamala Harris. But here's the problem here. The majority of Americans are still not college educated, and Democrats slipped with every non-college educated demographic.
Listen to him.
Even with Black Americans.
It's because y'all aren't college educated. How does he know that these three are not college educated? He's just again reiterating what Roland is saying, is that these people are idiots. They're not as smart as us, and that's why we call these people the black boule, because the black boule, the black elite, the talented 10th are no different than the white elite, the white people that sit up in the ivory towers and peer down at people that are below them. That's exactly what the elitism that he's expressing here is, that, oh, we got college degrees. They don't have college degrees, and they're dumb, and they don't get their information from the New York Times like me.
Non-college educated demographic. Even with Black Americans, that was Trump's strongest group of Black Americans, were Black people without a college degree. And so I think that part of putting out misinformation is being able to message people who might not be as educated as us, who might not understand things as easily as we do. We've got to learn how to break it down Barney style, as we used to put it in the military.
Barney style. So these Barneys, these are Barneys. They're idiots. They don't have college degrees. They're dumb. And that's why they voted for Trump. Good luck with that message. Good luck with that message, Democrats. So the media's agenda is the same agenda as the Democratic Party. You remember this fiasco where this complete lunatic comes up to this kid's face who's there in Washington, D.C. on the mall at the Right to Life, and how the media just like defamed this guy and these kids, and the way they talked about this kid just because he was wearing a Make America Great Again hat, and that gave them the right to demonize. And this guy won millions of dollars, and he deserves it. I'm glad that he sued them and that he won all that money. But this is just one example of a story. If you watch it, I don't even have time to play some of the narratives that these guys, made around this kid and these kids, and the Native American lunatic comes up beating this stupid drum in this kid's face. But there are multiple examples. There's so many examples of how the media and their agenda is the same agenda with the Democratic Party. Remember this famous clip? This is from 2016 at the DNC after Hillary Clinton gives her her acceptance speech. God forbid. She was never inaugurated for anything. Her acceptance speech. And Wolf Blitzer, and again, going back to Chuck Todd from the last podcast, he was trying to make this case that there was the pundits, and then there was the journalists, and the journalists didn't lie, but it was the pundits. No, both of you guys lied, and there's really no difference between the pundit and the journalist, because the person at home, Joe Blow TV watcher, doesn't know the difference. My mother doesn't know the difference between a journalist and a pundit. They're all journalists. They're presenting themselves as journalists, as they're there, giving you fake news. So I know that Wolf Blitzer is supposed to be a journalist, and he's at the DNC dancing and drinking wine and celebrating Hillary Clinton's acceptance as the nominee in 2016. You can't have this. This is why no one trusts you, people. Hillary. And we're all dancing for Hillary, who lost. So yes, I mean, there's so many examples of the Democratic Party and the mainstream media being a one group, having one mind, having one agenda. And one of my favorite examples is the fine people example. So this is a girl that is becoming popular online. She used to work for ABC. I don't know how many people know that she used to work for ABC Disney as a foreign correspondent. Her name is Tara Palmieri. And now she's online. She's, gaining in popularity. She was on the Bill Maher show earlier this season. But Tara was on with this guy, Tim, what's his name? The Timcast. Gotta forget his name. But anyway, she was on this podcast with, I forget his name. What's his last name? I can't believe I'm drawing blank on it. But she was on Timcast and they get into talking about, the fine people, which everyone should know that the fine people hoax was an absolute lie at this point. But take a listen.
Fine people, which he did not.
He said there were good people on both sides.
He said, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis or the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally.
Is that the full quote?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
You didn't know that.
Oh my gosh. So this guy says, oh my gosh. Because by this point in 2024, 2025, this just happened a couple of weeks ago, this podcast with Tara. But at this point in 2025, everyone should know that that's the quote. And she doesn't know. She's in journalism. She used to work for ABC. She's on the Bill Maher show. She just did a podcast just a few days ago where she had James Carville on debating the Hogg kid that's the vice chair of the DNC. And she's got a very influential and popular podcast. How could she not know that the fine people quote is a quote? I mean, fine people quote is a hoax at this point. How could she not know? And that's what I was thinking about this. I was thinking that's how the Mandela effect happens. There's going to be tons of people in 20 years who are going to believe and know that they heard Donald Trump say, drink bleach during COVID. Donald Trump never said drink bleach during COVID. They're going to go back and look and they're going to see that he says something about internal disinfectant. And they're going to be like, I knew that he said drink bleach. What are you talking about? He didn't say drink bleach. I heard him with my own ears, but that's what the way it is with this fine people, because the media put that in everyone's head that Trump said to drink bleach. The media put that in everyone's head that Trump said that neo-Nazis were fine people. He didn't actually say that. He didn't actually say drink bleach. He didn't actually say that the neo-Nazis were fine people, but the media drummed that into people's head where they don't even, you can even give them the facts and even with presented with the facts, they're going to be like, no, I heard it with my own ears, And that's what happens here with Tara on the Timcast show. Take a listen.
People on both sides.
He said, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis or the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally.
Is that the full quote?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
You didn't know that.
I have to look back on it.
Wait, now can you pull up the video of it just so you know, because we were wrong about the Hickseth stuff.
So they watch the full video. She's presented with the information. And then this is a different podcast a week later. And she still won't admit it. Take a listen to this.
Did you know that Tara Palmieri, she's still hung up on the very fine people hoax?
Yes, on the show.
We talked about it in the after show.
After you left, even she was extremely hung up on this and would not accept that she was misled.
She wouldn't accept it.
Really?
Yeah,
Did you show her the video?
Oh yeah, we talked about it.
I pulled up Snopes and showed her.
No. Even beyond that, she said, no. I still think he called them very fine people.
It's a cult, okay? Yeah. Because if you can't change your mind in the presence of facts,
absolutely,
you are in a cult.
Absolutely.
Like,
but
she's
and it's not only that she works in the media, but I mean, the media narrative has been drummed into her head. I don't even think that she has the ability to admit the fact that she was gaslighted by the media. And not only was she gaslighted by the media, now she is the media, and she was the media back then. And then she perpetuates the lie that Trump said fine people, that Trump said drink bleach, which is a lie.
Even she was extremely hung up on this and would not accept that she was misled at all.
Really? Did you show her the video?
Oh yeah, we talked about it.
I pulled up Snopes and showed her.
No. Even beyond that, she said, no. I still think he called them very fine people.
It's a cult, okay? Yeah. Because if you can't change your mind in the presence of facts, you are in a cult.
Absolutely.
And she's desperate to hold on to that.
Had recently started to claim that the president didn't actually say neo-Nazis in Charlottesville, quote, very fine people, even though he did say it.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And that's the quote that they played on the media, and then they cut it over and over again. They only played that small little clip, and then they played it over and over again. So that's penetrated in your head that Trump said there were fine people on both sides, and then they cut it. They don't play the rest of what he says, so you don't get the full context. This is media manipulation, Roland Martin. This is media manipulation. And maybe people don't have college degrees, but you don't have to have a college degree to see when you're being manipulated. And that's exactly what this is. And that's exactly what they did with this fine people hoax, just like with the drink bleach hoax, just like many, many other hoaxes where the mainstream media is doing the work of the Democratic Party, the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, geez, people. I can give you so many examples.
Had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Why can't this president, who, by the way, called Nazis very fine people...
He believes those Nazis and white supremacists who marched in Charlottesville are very fine people.
And the president said there were very fine people on both sides, including marching with Nazis.
Yep. Notice that it's Democrat politicians pushing the narrative along with the media pushing the narrative. Democrat politicians have this agenda. The media has the same agenda as the Democrat politicians. There's no daylight between their agenda.
This president, who, by the way, called Nazis very fine people.
He believes those Nazis and white supremacists who marched in Charlottesville are very fine people.
And the president said there were very fine people on both sides, including marching with Nazis.
Yep. From white supremacists and neo-Nazis in Charlottesville, Trump's very fine people.
This guy, Joe Biden said that the whole reason that he ran in 2020 is because Trump said that the neo-Nazis were fine people. Meanwhile, this guy's sending billions over to neo-Nazis, real neo-Nazis over in Ukraine.
Very fine people.
He praised those people marching with neo-Nazis and the KKK as very fine people.
Saying that neo-Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists are very fine people.
So those are just examples of how the media and the Democratic Party work together. Just a few examples. And I want to play this clip of Adam Coleman from the New York Post. And I played this clip before the election. And this guy just makes some brilliant points. I wanted to play it again, to make the case so Roland Martin and people like Roland Martin can understand that it's not that people are uneducated and idiots. Actually, these people are very reasonable. These people are where most Americans are. That where they don't trust the American media, mainstream media, because they realize that the media is manipulating them, and they have chosen. They have the freedom to choose other places to consume media. So they've gone out and they've looked for other answers because they can tell that the media is manipulating them. They're reading other things, watching other videos, and they're being persuaded by it. How could they not be persuaded by it when it's so obvious that you're being lied to? And that's what Adam Coleman says here in this video. Take a listen.
How I used to kind of despise Trump and how I ended up just seeing him for who he is, being just a flawed individual. And part of that had to do with the good people on both sides lie that was perpetuated by the media. For many years, I was a Democrat. I was someone who would watch the mainstream news and felt like I was being informed. But then I became curious about Donald Trump as I was talking to more and more people about him. And that's when I came across the good people on both sides accusation as being an actual lie.
He's saying good people on both sides. He's talking about the fine people hoax. But as I said when I played this clip before the election, is that in so many people's eyes, Michael Rappaport too. He makes the same statements about when he finally, his eyes were open to the way that they lied to him about the fine people quote. So many people is the point that I wanted to make. So many people's eyes have been opened by this, because this is just blatant, this fine people's, hoax that they pulled. It's so blatant that it really opens people's eyes and turns people against the media and the Democratic Party. And this chick Tyra here, she won't even admit to this day this lie, and she's still trying to perpetuate the lie, even when Tim Pool is showing her, the full context, and she still won't admit to it. But listen to what Coleman says here. Take a listen.
Donald Trump, as I was talking to more and more people about him. And that's when I came across the good people on both sides accusation as being an actual lie or misrepresentation of what he stated.
It's a lie.
Watched in full context,
it's a lie.
He was basically putting down the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists who showed up with tiki torches. I realized that the media purposefully misframed what he was stating, and he was actually relatively clear as far as who he was talking about was good. The people who were protesting for and against the statue being up of Robert E. Lee, and he was even more specific as far as the people who weren't violent, who were protesting on both sides of the matter. So I realized at that moment, if the media can lie to me about this for years upon years, claiming that he said something that he clearly didn't say, and if you just extended that footage about 30 seconds or so, you would see it, then what else are they lying to me about? And that's what led me to become more independent-minded, eventually leaving the Democratic Party to become an independent and just asking questions about the media.
Roland Martin says you're dumb. Do you have a college degree? Because Roland Martin says you're an idiot, and we shouldn't even, Democrats shouldn't even try to reach you because you're an idiot.
Eventually leaving the Democratic Party to become an independent and just asking questions about the media that we consume and bipartisan curiosity. Am I making determinations politically because of how I feel, or is it because of what is true? By how I feel, who is making me feel this way? Is someone propagandizing me, trying to manipulate my emotions into feeling a particular way about someone, regardless if it's someone on the left or right? I became very conscious of my emotions and very conscious of any sort of manipulation attempt to get me to sway in one direction or another.
Emotions. Conscious of my emotions.
When it comes to Donald Trump, if he is evil, then why lie about him? Because someone who's truly evil, you just tell the truth about them. The truth says everything. So is he really that evil? Is he someone that you can disagree with? I have disagreements about him. Is he someone that you have to love? You don't have to love him in order to vote for him. Is he someone that's flawed? Absolutely, he is flawed. But is he evil? Is he the next Hitler? Is he someone who's going to bring an end to democracy as we know it? That's categorically false. I see no evidence for it.
So he says that once his eyes were open and he saw how they were lying to him about the fine people, then he was able to see Donald Trump in a different way. I'm sure that's the same thing that happened with these people that voted for the Democrats back in 2020, back in 2016. That once the scales are off your eyes and you can see clearly that these people are lying to me. Maybe I don't know everything about Donald Trump. Maybe I need to start doing some more digging, But one thing I do know that these people are lying to me. And once you see those scales, once those scales fall off your eyes and you can start seeing clearly, then you can go and you can start looking for what's true and what's not true. But he says that I had to monitor my emotions after the scales fell off, that I had to ask the question, do I feel the way that I feel because of these are the facts, or is someone manipulating my emotions? And yes, someone's trying to manipulate your emotions. That's what they're doing. That's the whole play. That's what I've been telling you, how they use Freudian psychology, going back to Edward Bernays and his creation of public relations and using propaganda, using his uncle Sigmund Freud's psychology and appealing to subconscious, base instincts. Yes, they're trying to manipulate your emotions with fears, with violent motives, with immoral urges, selfish needs, shameful experiences. They're appealing to your baseness, to sell you products, but to also sell you ideas and candidates. So they absolutely are. So we're talking about this incident and the last podcast, and we were talking about Joe Biden because everyone now is trying to rewrite history about Joe Biden's cognitive decline and the fact that nobody there, saw that he had cognitive decline and nobody challenged the Democrat and the people in the media like Chuck Todd. I was playing in the last podcast saying that it wasn't the journalist's fault. It was the pundits' fault. It wasn't the journalist's fault. We didn't cover it up. So they're all throwing each other on the bus. Jake Tapper's coming out with the book. There's a couple of books coming out about, they're giving each other awards at the White House Correspondents' Dinner where Courtney here is on the board of the White House Correspondents Association, and she worked as a LA Times journalist, gives Joe Biden questions before, so Joe Biden can be prepared for the questions. And Joe Biden is so feeble-minded that he shows the questions to everyone. But what does that do? Not in putting your finger on the scale like that. That allows Joe Biden to be prepared. That's one of the things, is because they said that the debate is the first time where Joe Biden showed cognitive decline. Well, the debate was the first time where Joe Biden had been challenged. Debate was the first time where somebody could sit back and press Joe Biden and make him answer questions that he didn't have in advance and didn't know in advance and wasn't prepared for. So of course they demonstrated his cognitive decline. But if the point I'm making is that if Courtney here wouldn't have been giving her questions to Joe Biden in advance and forced him to answer questions on the spot, have to think about it and give a coherent answer. If Courtney wasn't playing ball here, then the signs of Joe Biden's cognitive decline would have been shown a lot sooner. The only reason they were shown in the debate is because that was the first time that he was being pressured. He wasn't pressured by these guys. They gave him his questions beforehand. Now, Donald Trump, very different. Donald Trump didn't get the questions beforehand. He did an interview. Did an interview with ABC last week. Did an interview with NBC this week with the propagandist Kristen Welker. Listen to this question. I was so blown away by this question that Kristen Welker asked. These are the type of questions that they asked Donald Trump and the way that they press Donald Trump. Never did it with Joe Biden. Never followed up with Joe Biden. Played the clip in the last podcast with Aaron Burnett and the CNN interview. Joe Biden says that when he was sworn in, inflation was 9%. She doesn't say, no, sir, the inflation wasn't 9%. The way the ABC guy pressed Donald Trump on the MS-13 tattoos. Talked about that, and he pressured him about that and said, no, the tattoos were photoshopped. They talked about that for a good, 3 or 4 minutes. Aaron Burnett lets Joe Biden just say that inflation was 9% when he was sworn in, like it was nothing. And that's the way they know how to do it. They interview Trump and his team and press them, but they never press Biden. They allow them to come on and spew all the lies because they have the same agenda. But this question just blew my mind. I couldn't believe that this propagandist, Kristen Welker, asked this question. Unbelievable. Take a listen.
Let me ask you big picture. People who have lived in countries like the Philippines, Hungary, Russia, they look at some of your actions going after civil service, going after universities, law firms, the media. They say it's out of an authoritarian playbook.
Just wow. Just wow. First of all, who are the people that you're talking about, Kristen Welker? Are these comments that you got off of Facebook? Are these people at your dinner party? Who are these people? She starts off saying just some random group of people who we don't even know who's making these statements that lived in the Philippines. They lived in Russia. These people. These people said that your playbook is right out of an authoritarian regime. Which people are you talking about, Kristen Welker, first of all? And what kind of question is that? Especially when you're not, I mean, if you would say, Senator Chuck Schumer says that your actions are out of an authoritative playbook, then I can say, okay, I can attribute that to Chuck Schumer, and I can, say, okay, well, I expect Chuck Schumer to say that. He's the opposition. He hates Trump. You guys are on the same side. But just to say, people, which people, who people from these countries say that you are using an authoritarian playbook. Now, Joe Biden tried to use OSHA to mandate that everybody in this country that has a job get vaccinated with a vaccine that was rushed through trials that a lot of people were uncomfortable taking. He tries to use the federal government through OSHA to mandate that if you work in this country and you worked for a corporation that had over a certain amount of employees, that you mandate that you take the vaccine. Was that authoritarian? Kristen Welker, did you ask Joe Biden? Did you ask the people from the Biden administration about that authoritarian action? But no, these are the kind of questions they asked Trump, and only Trump, because their agenda and Joe Biden's agenda was the same agenda. So Trump is their opposition. Not only is Trump the Democrats' opposition, Trump is the opposition of the media as well.
Let me ask you big picture. People who have lived in countries like the Philippines, Hungary, Russia, they look at some of your actions going after civil service, going after universities, law firms, the media. They say it's out of an authoritarian playbook. What do you say to those who believe you are taking the country down an authoritarian path?
Well, there you go again. Why don't you ask it a different way? Many
Absolutely.
people want to come into our country. Many people
and it's the way that and he's absolutely right. He says, why don't you ask it a different way? It's the way they know how they're crafting their questions with a specific goal in mind to lead the conversation and to lead viewers to get the opinion and the emotional reaction that they want. They ask the questions with that in mind, and it's designed to do that.
Of Trump, I won the election. They didn't win the election. I got a lot more votes than they did. I won the popular vote. I won all 7 swing states by a lot. A lot of people were surprised. I said, I think he could win 4, maybe 5. No, I won all 7, and I won by a lot. And I won, actually, I think there was a lot of hanky-panky going on, but it was too big to rig. That's the good news. It's too big to rig. But let me just say, so when you make these statements about people say this, people, well, they had their chance at the election and they lost big.
Yeah, I love that when he says, these mysterious people that you're talking about. I assume they're Americans. Well, they had their chance during the election. If, they lost.
It's too big to rig. But let me just say, so when you make these statements about people say this, people, well, they had their chance at the election and they lost big. So you should ask the question differently. You should say, what about the people that want to be in this country? What about the people that love this country?
But what do you say? I'm asking it on behalf of those people.
I'm asking on behalf of those people. Which people are you talking about, Kristen? Who are we talking about? Who are these people, these mythical people that you're bringing up to ask this hypothetical question, to call Donald Trump an authoritarian leader? Authoritarian leader. That's the objective of this question, is to call him an authoritarian leader and to get that out. And then you're using these mythical, hypothetical people. We don't even know who these people are. And she presses him on it on behalf of these people. Who are these people?
Differently. You should say, what about the people that want to be in this country? What about the people that love this country?
But what do you say? I'm asking it on behalf of those people to give you a chance to respond to them. What do you say to those people, sir?
Those people are going to be very happy. They're going to have to.
There are no people, President Trump.
We had a great 100 days. There are a lot of people that say it was unprecedented.
There are no people saying that. They're saying it. You want to know who's saying that? You want to know who's saying that Trump is an authoritarian? Is the media and the Democrats. Those are the people. Those are the people she's talking about.
It was an absolutely unprecedented 100 days. And I hope that they're going to be right.
Do you see dissent as an essential part?
I love this part because the clip ends here, but she asks, after bringing up this question about these mythical people, asking about him being an authoritarian. Listen what she says.
And I hope that they're going to be right.
Do you see dissent as an essential part of democracy?
Do you see dissent as an essential part of democracy? This guy was president during Black Lives Matter, sweetie. They attacked the White House. He had to be rushed to his underground bunker. Of course he sees dissent as a part of democracy, I guess. I mean, it's not like he cracked down with the military on Black Lives Matter. These people are propagandists, complete propagandists. So Chuck Todd in the last podcast, we played the clip of him saying that it wasn't the journalist's fault. it was the pundits' fault and the Democrats' fault, but it wasn't our fault. And distributing blame now that we are after the election and 3 months after Trump has been sworn in, they're doing a Maricopa, and they still haven't done an autopsy. That was one of the things that came up in the debate that Tara did with the Hogg kid and Carville. And he said that they asked the question, why haven't you guys done an autopsy report? Because after the Republicans lost in 2012, when Obama beat Mitt Romney, they did an autopsy report. They found out what it was about the party that was turning voters off. Now, Trump departed from everything that was in that autopsy report, but at least the Republican Party did it. They went and they looked into, what is the reason that we're losing so much support right now. Democrats haven't done that. They haven't done it after 2024, and they should have done it after 2016. And that's the problem. If you look and you chart from Obama being elected in 28, then you had the red wave in 2010. Obama does win in 2012, but he loses 4 million votes. And the only reason that Obama won in 2012 is because he was running against milquetoast Mitt Romney. But you can see the steady decline in the Democratic Party going from 2008, the red wave in 2010. Obama wins in 2012, but they do lose congressional seats. And then 2014 is a bloodbath for the Democratic Party. And then Trump wins in 2016. And after 2016, they should have done an autopsy at that point and say, what's going on with us that we're losing in all these congressional seats and we just lost the White House? What's going on? But they didn't do it because they had someone to blame in 2016. It was Russia's fault, and Russia swayed the election for Donald Trump. But after 2024, you guys haven't done an autopsy. So everyone's doing these Maricopas, trying to figure out what's going on with the Democratic Party, which is essentially the mainstream media. So Chuck Todd's here that it wasn't our fault. It wasn't the journalist's fault. This is the fault of the pundits and of the Biden administration.
This is not a media failure. This is a failure of the Democratic Party. And I just sort of the virtue signaling that some people have done to try to say that the media missed this story. They didn't miss this story. David Ignatius wrote, I just refuse to accept this stupid premise because it's a right-wing, manufactured right-wing premise in order to stain the media. The media's got plenty of things to attack them for, and there are MSNBC and CNN and pundits that absolutely carried water for Joe Biden, but they're not journalists.
They see, and that's the narrative that he's trying to go with. It wasn't the media's fault. And the pundits are, I mean, I don't understand the distinction that you're trying to make, because the pundits are on the same networks as the journalists. You guys are the same. You're the same as the Democratic Party too. So, nobody's really buying this stuff. And I played this clip in the last podcast, the supercut. I'm not going to play it again, of all the people in the media, allowing the Democrats to say that Joe Biden's fine. He's the best he's ever been.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth.
Joe Biden's
and
the
F
best.
you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
She knows so long.
So I'm not going to play all of this, but you saw all of that. I have another clip that I'm going to play, but I want to play this. This is Chris Cillizza. This isn't in the interview that he did with Chuck Todd, but this is in a different podcast that he did. He's a CNN journalist, and I want you to listen to what he says here, because he says some important stuff.
So yes, when I watched Joe Biden, the eye test made me think, as I watched him, man, he has really slowed down, and I'm not sure he should run for a second term. It did not make me think, man, he definitely, something is really wrong with him, and I'm going to cover it up so that he can win. No, absolutely not. But I will also add this. That does not. The fact that I do not believe there was any coordinated cover-up by the media of Joe Biden's condition, that does not get us media off the hook, and here's why. I made a video about this before. You can look at it. It's called My Apology for My Joe Biden Coverage. The media should have asked more questions about Joe Biden. I should have asked more questions about Joe Biden and his health. We should have dug harder. Because the eye test was what it was, and he looked old and frail, and when he was in public, he would sometimes lose his train of thought, we should have done more reporting. Now, people did. Alex Thompson at Axios did some. The Wall Street Journal.
Alex Thompson's the guy that they just gave the award at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's who he's talking about here. And then the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal, when they wrote that article about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, it was ripped all over the media. Everybody says that, how did these guys? So, because the Wall Street Journal is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox. So, everyone, when the Wall Street Journal, and there's only two examples. This article that this guy Thompson writes in Axios and in the Wall Street Journal article. And the Wall Street Journal article, when it came out, everybody was saying that it was right-wing propaganda because the Wall Street Journal is owned by Rupert Murdoch. This is a Rupert Murdoch rag that is writing about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, and it's right-wing attack. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that in what Chris Cillizza is saying here.
The media should have asked more questions about Joe Biden. I should have asked more questions about Joe Biden and his health. We should have dug harder. Because the eye test was what it was, and he looked old and frail, and when he was in public, he would sometimes lose his train of thought, we should have done more reporting. Now, people did. Alex Thompson at Axios did some. The Wall Street Journal political staff did some. People here and there wrote consistently and clearly
here and
maybe
there.
he was too old. I tried to talk about his age fairly frequently, but I should have talked about it more, and I should have asked more questions. And then you get to the why of that. Why didn't you ask?
Yeah, why? Why? Great question.
I'm not speaking for all of the media, because all the media is a vast thing. But here's what
vast majority.
You never see about who reporters vote for. They vote for Democrats much more than Republicans. And I think what was going on here is I think it was an inherent and sort of unconscious bias more than a conscious bias. But I think the reporters covering this White House were too willing to take the Biden team's word for it.
Wow. Listen to what he says. He says, I don't think that the whole thing is what he's saying. I don't think that it was a conscious cover up. He says, but if you look at all of the polling around who the media votes for, who they support, they all support the Democrats. So it was unconscious because they support the Democrats. So they made the unconscious decision to cover up. There wasn't a conscious decision, but it was an unconscious decision because they're all Democrats. This is what he says. Just wow.
Did some. People here and there wrote consistently and clearly that maybe he's too old. I tried to talk about his age fairly frequently, but I should have talked about it more and I should ask more questions.
Yeah, you guys should have.
And then you get to the why of that. Why didn't you ask more questions? And I'm not speaking for all of the media because all the media is a vast thing. But here's what I would say. Any study that you ever see about who reporters vote for, they vote for Democrats much more than Republicans.
You guys are all Democrats.
I think what's going on here is I think it was an inherent and sort of unconscious bias more than a conscious bias. But I think the reporters covering this White House were too willing to take the Biden team's word for it. Anytime you asked about Joe Biden, they would say, well, I mean, he's 80, moves a little bit more stiffly than he did before, but man, he is totally with it. He outworks our 20-something staffers. And I think reporters were too willing to just say, okay, that makes sense. They were too credulous. They didn't.
Wow, I can't believe that. So he's saying that it wasn't that we were consciously covering up, that this was an unconscious cover up because we're all Democrats. So that's a huge problem. If your whole newsroom is filled with Democrats, that's the problem. That's a problem. That's a problem that you are hiring so many people with a intrinsic bias. That's the problem. That doesn't make it any better. And I'm not sure that I agree with that. Chris, here's some clips. Take a look at this supercut.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. I can't even keep up with him.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it.
So this is he does this interview with Kristen Welker, this propagandist that did the interview with Trump, impressed him about being an authoritarian. And you got Mayorkas on here talking about how focused and how much stamina Biden has. She doesn't push back on Mayorkas the way that she did with Donald Trump about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Don Lemon here, who's a Democrat, doesn't push back on Karine Jean-Pierre about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. They just let them lie, like Chris Cillizza was saying. They just let them tell the lie, and he says that it was unconscious. This is unconscious bias because they're Democrats.
The United States, I can't even keep up with him.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it because he is sharp, intensely probing, detail-oriented, and focused.
I can testify because I've been working very closely with this president for the past 2 years. I've been knowing him for 30 years. And I'm telling you, this guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
Joe Biden has vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker.
The president is focused. He's detail-oriented. He's always thinking about the big picture.
He is engaging. He is capable. He has an incredible record as president.
And I'm often with him on foreign trips. He's at the top of his game. So he has a vision. He has knowledge. He has judgment. He has a strategic thinking.
I met with the president, 5 or 6 weeks ago, and he seemed fine to me.
I have complete confidence in the president.
So they all let them come on and lie. They didn't push back. They didn't challenge. Jake Tapper, this guy is now coming out with a book. He's coming out with a book now about the cover-up, of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And he was a prime conspirator, whether it be a conscious or unconscious conspirator. He's a prime example. And I'm sorry, Chris Cillizza, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that this is unconscious bias. This is absolutely conscious. Take a listen to Jake Tapper here.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
He blamed it on Joe Biden's stutter, first of all.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are
So I just want you to understand that all of these talking heads that come on the media and lie. I mean, this is Jake Tapper with Coons here. I mean, you let Coons tell this lie. You don't push back on Coons the way you do Trump's daughter-in-law. You don't push back on Coons the way, what's the issue here, Jake Tapper? Why do you let Coons sit here and lie to your face and say that Joe Biden is, on his game and sharp and focused and all this stuff? You don't push back on him the way you push back on Laura Trump. And then let's look at the way that he interacts with her. They know what's going on. Now, you can say this is unconscious, like Chris Cillizza says, but this is very well a bias, and you shouldn't have this type of bias in media, and this is why no one trusts you.
When they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no. I can't. It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline. President Biden embraces his stutter, talking about it, while Trump mocks it, exaggerates it, belittles it. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally. Yeah. I think the question is physically, right? Right. More so? Right. Right. And the guy who's his chief opponent is only 3 or 4 years younger than him.
Exactly. I mean, you have questioned President Biden's age, mental fitness, ability to lead. Of those supporting Biden, you said, quote, "Shame on all of you pretending everything is okay. You're leading us and him into a disaster." Do you worry that you damaged him at all? I don't doubt that you got hugs and handshakes behind closed doors today, and maybe even publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues.
Wow.
I mean, just
so you see how he's doing it. This is very slimy. Jake Tapper is one of the and I have contempt for all these people. I can't stand, if you can't tell, I can't stand the media, the mainstream media, and the people who work in mainstream media. I have very strong contempt for all of them. But Jake Tapper is he's at the bottom of the barrel. This guy is lower than mud. If you understand his craft and what he does, he is a complete slime ball. I'll give you one example of Tapper that I just think is one of the slimiest things that he did is when Trump was running in 2016. And he was fighting the Trump University case in San Diego. And the judge was a Mexican judge that was an anchor baby whose parents came here illegally. And he was born here. And then and he's a member of a legal group called La Raza. That means the race. And Donald Trump, it does an interview with Jake Tapper while that election is going on. And he sits back and because Trump's criticizing the fact that this Mexican judge who's giving very unfair rulings to him is a member of this group called The Race. And Trump is complaining about it. And Jake Tapper said, "Are you saying that the judge can't do his job because he's Mexican American?" It's like, no, nobody ever said that. Nobody ever said he can't do his job because he's Mexican American. He's an anchor baby who's a member of this group called The Race. I'm saying that he's giving me unfair rulings. I'm not saying he can't do his job because he's Mexican, but the way that he framed the question, and then Hillary Clinton later on, as she's campaigning, then she starts using the narrative that Trump said that a Mexican judge can't do his job because he's Mexican, and Trump never said that. Jake Tapper's the one who said it. So he's a slime ball. Complete slime ball. And he's covering for Joe Biden this whole time for his cognitive decline, attacking this guy who had the courage to run against him because he saw what was going on and he was honest about it, Dean Phillips. And he's attacking him, but doing it in a very subtle, passive aggressive way. And he's a slime ball.
And publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues. Sure. I mean, just like, what is he thinking? Exercise in narcissism. I mean, false claims to the Wall Street Journal about President Biden's mental fitness.
Wall Street Journal. So when Chris Cillizza brings up the Wall Street Journal, this is the kind of reporting that they did on that Wall Street Journal report about Biden's cognitive decline. It was false reporting.
I mean, false claims to the Wall Street Journal about President Biden's mental fitness and acuity. He's 81, and his memory, it doesn't seem great. It's not horrible, but I don't understand the outrage. Quote, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping, unquote.
Wall Street Journal.
The Wall Street Journal is owned by News Corp, which is run by Murdoch.
He gives you all that information. Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Murdoch. So he's telling you can't believe Wall Street Journal because it's owned by Murdoch. I mean,
it's not horrible, but I don't understand the outrage. Quote, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping, unquote. The Wall Street Journal is owned by News Corp, which is run by the Murdochs. Beyond the headline, there is some critical nuance here. The article is mostly based.
So he's a slime ball. Almost done. This is the last clip that I want to play in this podcast. We're going to pick this up in the next podcast. Going to actually pick up talking about Jake Tapper because I have some more on him. But this was at the DNC convention in 2024. And Savannah Hernandez actually corners these CNN talking heads leaving the DNC convention. And the Jake Tapper's there. Dana Bash is there. And you tell me, is this conscious bias or is this unconscious bias? Take a listen.
I'm here with CNN. I can't get very close to them because their security guard is blocking me. But we've got Jake Tapper here. We've got Chris Wallace. We also have Dana Bash. Now, I've been asking them why they have been lying to the American public about the mental decline of Joe Biden. None of you guys would like to respond to that at all? No? Dana, you're a very respected journalist. Jake, not so much respected, but people listen to you still. Would any of you guys like to respond to Joe Biden's cognitive decline and why you guys lied to the American people about it for so long? Can you please take your hands off of it?
Yeah, so that's at the Democratic National Convention, and of course at that time, Joe Biden had already dropped out, and Kamala Harris is the nominee, but at least Savannah had the courage to go and challenge them on it because they were absolutely covering up. And what? So is that conscious bias or is it unconscious bias? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So again, we're going to pick this up on Friday. I hope you guys have a great week and I'll see you on Friday.